Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 414 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fourth book was just released. It's called Using AI to Grow Your Fraternity or Sorority. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. We also have another book that's coming out for Christmas. So be on the lookout for our next book as well. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, Greek University started in 2015, but there have been multiple speaker bureaus before us as well. Our next guest created the first African-American focused online directory of speakers, so she is a wealth of information when it comes to public speaking and communication, so I can't wait to dive in. Having spent over 25 years in business, Dr. Norma Hollis intimately understands the struggles and challenges that entrepreneurs face. She has weathered the storm and emerged stronger, armed with a wealth of wisdom and experience to share with you. Norma is a beacon of guidance, teaching leaders and others how to navigate stress, overcome obstacles, prepare for growth, and savor the fruits of their labor. Her insights and practical advice are invaluable resources for those on the entrepreneurial path as she encourages them to stay focused, persevere, and bring their dreams to fruition. With her relatable storytelling and down-to-earth demeanor, Norma captivates as she imparts invaluable knowledge, helping leaders find the resilience and determination needed to succeed. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hollis.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction and that wonderful energy, and I'm enjoying being here, so let's go.
Let's go. I appreciate it. You have so much great stuff to share, and our students and our college administrators are going to learn so much from you. Let's start with the beginning. You went to Michigan State for your undergraduate experience. So tell our audience, why did you choose Michigan State?
Well, I really didn't. I really chose Purdue University, and I wanted to go to school in interior design. And for my research, Purdue had the most appropriate program. However, in the issue of economics, my father suggested, well, why don't you think about Michigan State University? So I did, and I went in interior design. But before the first year was over, what I realized is that they required far more art than I had the patience to learn. So at that time, the field of early childhood education was brand new. And I had a brand new 4-year-old brother, even though I was in college, he was very young. And so that was my love. And so I moved over from there to family and child life sciences. And that was the story. Michigan State was close. My parents could come visit close by. I had a sister in college also at Eastern University. We could visit. So it just made a lot of sense.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm happy that it all worked out looking back at it now. Now, of course, you did start the first African American focused online directory of speakers. It's called Black Speakers Online. How did you impact the professional speaking industry specifically for Black speakers?
Well, the impact was really a lot from the bureau. I had a bureau called Speakers, et cetera. I did that first, which you mentioned in the intro, and then the online directory came second. And sometimes you don't know how what you're doing now impacts the future. And what I learned after I stopped doing that work was that my work influenced many established bureaus to open African American departments. That was number one. The second thing that it did is it encouraged a lot of African American speakers to open bureaus for Black speakers. So now there are a tremendous number of bureaus. They even call me a legend. I didn't know if that was, I've heard it from many people. Oh, okay, I'll take it. But I didn't know that that's what was happening. But you don't know sometimes what you're doing now is going to impact your future, both yours and other people.
That's a great legacy. There is no question about that. So, well, congratulations. That's phenomenal work. And you did open up doors, I think, for so many Black speakers and Black, speaker bureau. It's just incredible when you think about what it looks like today in terms of the landscape. So, congratulations on all of that. I want to talk to you about our students. How can students embrace the authenticity that is in every single one of them and live with purpose?
Well, authenticity is difficult for students for a number of reasons. When you're a student, 18, 19, 17, 18, 19, you're just leaving your parents' home and you're not out on your own yet. So you're in that transition time. So pretty much what you know about life is what you learned in your parents' home. So your values are your parents' values, your community values are the same. And it's not till you get to college that you really get that exposure to so many other people who were raised so many different ways, have different ideas. I remember when I went to college, I met several girls who'd never even seen a Black person. They'd only heard about it. And they said, oh, you all are just fine. Well, yeah, but they had to experience it to know that. But in college, you're going through so many transitions that, well, who am I really? You know, my best friend here is like this, and this person thinks this way, and this one doesn't like me, and that one does this different. They eat different food, and you get so much different stuff. So it really is hard unless you're listening to yourself. So by that, the intuition you see there on my board, which I'll talk about in a minute, is really, it's important to learn to connect with yourself, to know who you are. The earlier you can learn it, you don't have to wait to college. I can help teach that to children who are in preschool, even, because that's when your true self emerges. And that's when it gets shot down, when you get so many other people's opinions about who you're supposed to be and what society tells you. So college is when you really face that head on, and you have to then begin to make decisions about who am I, what are my values, what part of me came from my parents, how am I different from my parents, and that's nothing that you really do consciously. It kind of just happens over time and it emerges. So to being aware of that and being aware of making decisions that feel right to you, that feel right to your inner self. That's the best thing I can tell a student at this point. Just be aware that that's going to be a challenge that you're going to have. And you have to make decisions then and decide what really feels right for you.
That's great advice. I was reading an article recently and it was talking about student engagement on college campuses, that it's really starting to go down quite a bit. And retention is always a problem for colleges today. So if our listeners, if they want to increase engagement and improve retention, let's say in their student organization, maybe they're a member of a fraternity or a sorority, how can they discover what their team strengths are and what gaps they have in order to properly align their team?
Well, that's when I want to introduce my grid to you for a moment. What you see behind me that I call my authenticity grid is a result of 30 years of research on human nature from personal, professional, and spiritual perspectives. And for me, it started when I was 28 and realized I had done everything my parents had said they say to do. They want me to go to education, but they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist first, but I didn't want to do that. So I went to education. I didn't want to be a teacher, so I went into early childhood. So that made sense. But then once I taught for 1 month in kindergarten and I hated it. And I knew I would like to work for children, but not with them. And at 28, I then realized also that I didn't need to be married to this man that my parents said I should, would make a good sense. I didn't need the house with the big picket fence. I didn't need the cars and the money in the bank. I needed to know who I was. And so that's what led me to build this grid. It started out with me identifying 9 energies that I recognized in myself, giving them a name of an animal, and then developing it. And what I've learned over the years is that to get things done effectively, you first think about it, then communicate, and then do. So what's important for college students to understand with their fraternities, sororities, and teams, who are the thinkers? Who are the communicators? Who are the doers? And if you've got too many thinkers, then you're probably not getting a lot done because you need doers to do that. If you got a lot of doers, you're probably not working strategically. So you're going in circles. So you need a combination and you need to know who has what strengths. Now, likewise, on the vertical side, that's inner, outer, and expressive. And so many of us are inner, we're very much listening to our voice, we're intuitive, we follow. Some of us are outer and more concerned with what other people say and how they perceive us. And some are expressive. We're always doing something to make the world a better place or to express ourselves or whatever. So what do you have on your team? And how can the expression be done? How can you go deeper into what the true feelings are and the purpose of the organization? How can you express the organization? How can you present it to the world in a better way? So this tool that I've developed creates a coaching tool for the individual and for the organization. If they use it for the organization, they can see where their gaps lie. If you have too many thinkers and not enough doers, you've got a gap there. If you have no communicators, no one's going to share the information. So that's what I would suggest, that they begin to get that kind of understanding of the complexity of us as humans. We're not single dimensional, we're all multidimensional. and recognize the dimensions of the people in their organizations and use their gifts and talents in the best way possible.
I love it. Doing that assessment is so important. I think they should be doing that on a regular, every semester basis and trying to figure out who do we need to attract it to our organization in order to fill those gaps. And really, the key is that diversity that you're talking about, having the doers, having the thinkers, and a good, healthy balance of both. If you're just recruiting in your fraternity just from the football team, and that's your only source of new members, more than likely you're going to get a concentration of students that are all looking at things the same way, and you're going to have to diversify somehow, get into other schools on campus, other departments, other majors, other people who are just maybe creatives, for example, instead of just the doers. Because having that healthy mix is really the key to your success. But all too often we just kind of go out and we recruit people that are just like us. That's kind of how we're wired as humans.
Yes, that's
But we
true.
have to really diversify, I think, is really important.
So important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Life is diverse. The world's diverse. So it starts
Yeah.
in college. Yeah.
100%. Now, a lot of the students that are listening right now, they are stressed out beyond belief. I mean, the cost of college education, I don't have to tell you, is just absolutely through the roof. And college students are trying to figure out, how am I going to make all of this work? So, how can students navigate all of the stress that's in their lives today?
Stop and breathe. Start there. Just stop and breathe. So, we're raised, and it's no different, I think, in today's society than when I was young, to believe that we're supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to find all the answers and be able to answer all the questions for ourselves. And by the time we're 30, we got our life perfect. That is not true. That's all a bunch of whatever you want to call it, but it's not true. So relax and take your time, because it takes years to really understand yourself, to be clear on really what it is you're here to do in the world and how you can do it best. Most people that I know that have a college degree are not working in the thing they got the degree in. So what the degree helps you know is that you have the discipline and the patience, and you go through the financial thing to make things happen. Now, we talk a lot and you hear a lot about having purpose on the planet, and fulfilling your purpose in the work that you do, that you choose to do while you're in college. So what I suggest, as I mentioned earlier, how important it is to know yourself and to be able to communicate with yourself. And what I talk to people about and what I help teach is how to build a relationship with your inner self so that you can communicate with that wisdom, that GPS system living within you that's connected to your purpose. Now, if you can do that, then you don't have to worry about stress, because you were put on the planet by some energy that created you, that brought you here, and that has the GPS system that you can connect to take you through your entire life. And if you get on the right path of doing the thing you're here to do, that energy is going to help you. So it's really about creating that connection with your inner self and going there for solace, knowing how to research, knowing how to think. I mentioned earlier, to get things done well, you think first, then communicate, then do. So for yourself, when the stresses come up, think about it. How can you evaluate it? What caused it? How can you read about it? What can you go find? Who can you talk to about it? Communicate with yourself, with others, with the universe. And then what do you do? So don't try to do something immediately without having time, taking time to think about it and to figure it out. It's when you get into trouble, it's when you get stressed and you go do something because someone says do something, or because get inspired, whatever. But take time, stop and breathe first. Talk to a friend, a coach, a parent, a teacher, someone, and then think about it some more. Communicate with yourself, and then go into action. And then you'll find, and if you take that as a lifelong way to go, and not just react, 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 react. That's what we do. We react, but take time and breathe and think and slow down, and then take action.
Excellent advice. You've overcome, thousands of obstacles. And so when I work with college students, sometimes an obstacle will present itself, and sometimes they're just real quick to just give up and just say, that's too difficult, forget it, I'm not going to do it, and then just basically give up on it. So, what should students do in order to overcome whatever obstacles are placed in front of them in life?
Well, it goes back to the same thing. First, stop and relax. And, you know, The truth about obstacles and challenges is that the more of them you have, the stronger you become,
Yeah.
and the more you appreciate your life. There's a difference between happiness and meaningfulness and joy. Happiness kind of happens when people make enough money to get the bills paid. But joy and meaningfulness in life comes when you've had to overcome something.
Mm.
I don't know anyone in my experience who hasn't had challenges.
Right.
Challenges are everywhere. I spoke to a college group recently, and one girl was sharing about how this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. And I had to just tell her, everyone in the room, that no one gets out of this planet without going through challenges. You're going to have them. So welcome when they come. So ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I improve this? And then when it's over, what did I do? When I have my bureau, when I coach speakers, I always ask them, what was your challenge and how did you overcome it? So the way you overcome and how you do one thing is how you do all things. So find ways to figure out what is the real issue and how can I think myself way through it? Who can I talk to about it? And what do I need to do? Same thing. Think about it first, then communicate, and then do. Don't just try to go into action right away without a plan.
That's sage advice. Really, really good stuff. Now, I'm a big fan of developing public speaking skills. I think, especially because of the smartphones that the students are carrying around all the time, they're not really developing their communication skills and their public speaking skills. It's all, let's go on a date, online and swipe right or swipe left. I mean, there's no communication happening. I mean, back in the day, you and I would sit across from the table, we would get some dinner, and we would have a conversation, and none of this swiping right or swiping left. So, what advice do you have for college students, maybe aspiring speakers who want to develop their public speaking skills?
Practice. Get in front of the mirror, get in front of your family. So public speaking skills are used for a couple of reasons. One, because most people that are successful are good speakers. So you need to have a command of the language. And it's also for your own personal development. Uh, Public speakers have a lot of confidence. So if you want to do confidence building, public speaking is another way to do that. So I would suggest basically just practicing. So college gives you opportunity, especially in fraternities and sororities and other places where you can go speak. You can also speak at schools to other students who haven't graduated yet, but you need to practice. You need to find out and record yourself. Whenever you speak, do a recording on your phone. If you can do video, that's great. If it's just audio, that's fine. And then play it back as soon as you can when you're done, because only you know what you said and what you were thinking when you said it. So if you find yourself messing up when you're speaking, go back and say, oh, that's because I got diverted. I was thinking about me rather than them. Or I was thinking and concerned about, ooh, they're watching me and they're looking at me. Yeah, they are. If you're talking, people looking at you, whether it's to one person or to many. But just slow down, practice, and record so you can hear yourself. Then you can self-correct. When you can self-correct, then you can make all your personal changes for yourself. And you can also see the progression of how you've grown. Another thing I would suggest definitely is to consider Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a great organization. They teach you leadership skills, communication skills, confidence skills, and it's an organized way that's been around for years. They're everywhere and they're inexpensive. So that's the other thing I would suggest.
Great tips. I would also say, there are Rotary clubs in every city in America. They're always looking for speakers every single week. Now, it's not going to be a paid opportunity, but it is an opportunity for you to practice. And so they would love for a college student to come in there and kind of just talk about the landscape at a local college, let's say, that impacts everybody in that room, no matter, what company you have in that city. And so I think that could be another really good way to get some
Let me just
practice
add,
there.
I call that the core four.
Yeah.
And that's the Kiwanis, the Rotary, the Lions Clubs, and also the Chambers of Commerce.
Yes.
So, but I would maybe add schools to that for the students. But yes, every chance you get, speak, and speak some more.
Amen. Amen. Now, since we're talking about speaking, I want to talk about communication too, because, I'll say as somebody who was, a male 18-year-old in a fraternity, our communication skills were not great, even between each other as a team, right? So how can our students who are listening now, how can they improve communication within their student organization between each other?
Well, why don't you just consider some dialogue groups, some opportunities to give a chance to speak. Um, in my business, I bring people together every week to talk about different topics.
Mhm.
And all of my programs that I do involve group conversation, group to group. And what people tell me about my program, no matter what I do, they love that more than anything else. Because one thing that we all live our lives alone, I mean, within ourselves. But when you figure out, when you learn how someone else solves a problem like one that you had and solve it in a different way, that's when you learn a lot. That's when you begin to communicate. That's when you begin to know each other. So this whole idea of getting together and just having dialogue, just having like a topic, like intuition, as you, for example, just get together and just talk about your intuition or talk about your gifts and talents or find things outside of things that you find things that you enjoy doing, more fun things, and get together and talk about that. That will help you get more comfortable in talking. The students today have a disadvantage in a sense from the standpoint of having the phones because they don't get a chance, like you said, to communicate as we did as children, you know. And it's also difficult because we had to memorize phone numbers and directions, and now we don't. You just push a button and it tells you where to go. So
Mhm.
we're not thinking as critically as we need as we used to. So having small groups and forming those, I mean, and even on campus, especially if you're having problems on campus with anything diversity or what have you, a unit, I mean, a sorority or fraternity could start just some dialogue and just bring people together of different maybe seniors and freshmen together or all freshmen together just to have dialogue, just practice. You have things you don't practice, you don't do well. So create opportunities to practice sharing with other people, and then that will improve that.
Great. Absolutely fantastic. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about too is just creating diverse organizations. It kind of goes back to our earlier question and our earlier conversation about the doers and the thinkers and all of that. I think we all agree that we should have diverse organizations. But the reality is, when I look at, let's say IFC fraternities or Panhellenic sororities, these are traditionally white fraternities and sororities. And so I think having a diverse perspective is super important, especially when we're thinking about the demographics of today's college campuses. It's much more diverse today than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. So how can our listeners get more diverse students within their organization, on today's campuses when they look around, it's just all white people? I mean, how do you diversify from that point?
Well, first, it's a commitment to do that. You have to just decide that that's what you want to do. It's not going to happen without that.
Mhm.
My Black people are not going to come to a white fraternity or sorority without an invitation, without some difference. And now the main difference is really is the difference in culture and the difference in how we were raised and sometimes the way we were thinking. But there's a great value in learning the difference in the cultures of other people. And so it makes me wonder, and maybe you know the answer to this, Michael, if there are any fraternities and sororities that are interracial at this time,
Mhm.
because most of them I know are strictly, are like deltas and the AKAs and all
Right,
that are strictly Black, and
right.
the, all the others, I don't know the others. I used to know some of them, were are particularly white. So the one thing about college students that I just love is that that's when you're at the most idealistic. You see you're old enough to know what's wrong with the world, and you're idealistic to know how it can be fixed. So take that idealism and use it now and start something now, because that can last a lifetime. That can last not only something for the school, but also for you and what you're doing as a student.
Mhm.
So take that time and just because you're fearless then, you don't understand all the challenge. You don't understand, and you think you can ram through and do it all and change the world, and you can. And it can start with you just bringing the collectiveness together of what you believe. So bring your beliefs to reality when you're in college, and then that will set a foundation for it to continue both in the college and in your own life.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, maybe we can have some conversations, I think, between councils, between fraternities and sororities, and learn about other cultures outside of your own. And that just starts with conversation. Maybe it's food. I love to think about food as something that brings people together, right? I mean, we can disagree, maybe, politically, maybe we come from different angles, but if it's good food, good barbecue, whatever it is that we're eating, we both agree this is a great plate of food right here, right? So it
Right.
doesn't matter where we're coming from. We both agree on this, and that's the starting point, right?
Okay.
So, maybe it's just about learning about other cultures other than your own. And I think then organically we can start to have conversations about how we can work together across councils and ultimately how we can diversify our organizations because I do think that we have so much to learn from each other. I mean, you bring up the deltas, the AKAs. I mean, these are dedicated women that when they join this organization, let me tell you something, this is for life, okay? This is, I mean, they're going to conventions 80 years old, 90 years old, wearing those letters, the pink and green, the red. I mean, it's like, it's incredible. And I'm jealous of that because in the white fraternities and sororities, I will tell you, I mean, it is like something we did in college,
Oh,
past
really?
tense. It's a
Okay.
4 year experience, and then it's like we're done, and then we move on with the rest of our life. So, I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other. Typically, the white fraternities and sororities typically are a little bit larger in size in terms of the chapter size. So I think there's information that, we can share in terms of, recruitment and retention of students. So there's a lot to learn here from each other. I feel like there's opportunity here, but it starts with conversation. It starts by bringing people together, learning about new cultures and sharing ideas.
Yes.
And I think if we do that, then maybe we get a little bit closer to the ultimate goal. All right, this has been really, really great discussion. And I talked a little bit about food, but that's my weakness, right? I love good food. And I know you live out in LA and there are so many good restaurants. The problem is when I go out there, like they come in and out of business all the time, and there's like always something going on. There's always some new hotspot. So where do you go for a great bite to eat out in LA?
Well, my favorite place is a place called Truxton's, Truxtons,
All right.
and it's located right, it's near the airport, in fact.
Uh-huh.
And what I like about it is the fact that it has a broad menu. So I take friends there all the time, and everybody can always find something that they like or several things to choose from. So that would be a great place. Now, I don't know about students themselves. The Truxtons is a good place to go as a group or to take your parents. Not that it's not good for young people as well, but anything around USC,
Hmm.
around the Figueroa, Adams area in Los Angeles. I couldn't tell you names, but that's where all the students are. So I
Hmm.
certainly would suggest if you're talking about LA proper, that would be a good place to look. I can't tell you where, but there's all kind of places that I don't eat folks except that young people eat. I've got a little older and you got to change your diet as you get older. So I can't relate to those kind of things, but all around USC, I'm sure they could find more than what they could eat, what they could consume.
Oh yeah, that whole area is just booming with restaurants over there. But I will try truck stints when I'm in and out of LA airport because
Yeah,
I go in and out of there all the time. So I'm definitely going to check that out, and I'll let you know what I
that's
think
good.
after I go there. That's going to be a lot of fun. All right, so if our listeners, if they want to bring you in as a speaker for their college campus to talk about authenticity, the authenticity grid that you've developed over time, which I think is just fascinating, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Well, the most direct connection would be info@normahollis.com. Info@normahollis.com. If you want to see my speaking page, it's normahollis.com/speaking. Normahollis.com/speaking. And I just want to make another comment about my grid and that what I've learned about it, because it was kind of downloaded through me, is that it is a life management tool, a life management instrument. And what I would be very interested in doing is helping students to understand the grid because it's a self-coaching tool. Because students don't learn, they don't get self-awareness. No one teaches it, not the colleges, not the high schools, not life. The students generally learn who they are from the bullies in the playground. And that's generally wrong. So what I want to do with college students, particularly, especially freshmen and coming in, is to help them understand themselves. Because if they get self-understanding early enough in life, then that's a way to really overcome any obstacle because you know what you're made of. You got your fortitude, you got your confidence, and you know how to go to the grid to find out how to overcome any obstacles that might come your way. So that's that, and to teach it for the faculty and students would be life changing. And I'd love to have a conversation about that with those that might be interested.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's the Authenticity Grid developed by Dr. Norma Hollis. Go and check out her website and all of her speaking options out there, normahollis.com/speaking. and you will see all kinds of options for your college student. I would highly recommend going to check that out. And listen, what can I say? Norma, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing all this great information with us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, Michael, and I appreciate what you're doing and how you're bringing people to the universities because it's so important. Thank you so
It
much.
is. It's critical. Well, thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Hollis today, I want you to like this on social media and I want you to share it with other college students on your campus. That is really, really important because what Dr. Hollis has to say is incredibly important for your long-term success, both in college and after you graduate as a professional as well. So we hope you enjoyed this today. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.